as you were aware, our bond was defeated narrowly in the community a couple of months ago. It seems longer at this point. And of course, we have a budget as well to put before the community. These are very, very difficult financial times, as you're aware. And initially, all of the schools in New York State were threatened, so to speak, with the loss of state aid, which was putting us in a very, very difficult place. The federal government has come through, as you've read, with a stimulus package, which has restored almost all of our state aid, and that's very good news. And at last Tuesday's board meeting, I was able to restore approximately 9 positions back to the school district. Now, initially, we were losing 47 positions from the school district due to the financial situation that we're facing. Now we're losing 38. The positive news for our employees is that right now we're losing, in terms of actual people, not positions now, but people, approximately 14 or 15. And there's a possibility we might be able to restore more depending on things like child care leaves and resignations and so on. Class size will be going up slightly in some of our elementary grades. But mostly we've been able to protect our important programs. We're very pleased about that. The budget-to-budget increase with everything I've talked about is going up 3.23%, which is the smallest amount it's gone up probably in 30 years. And the tax rate right now is going up approximately 3.89%. Again, a very small amount compared to past tax rates. Now, in addition to the budget vote on May 19th, we'll again be putting a bond before the community. This bond, however, will be a minimal bond from the perception that we are only including the things that are of the utmost importance to take care of the infrastructure of the school district. We have boilers at the Comics and Central School, which are over 30 years old, which are in danger of failing. And so they will be in the bond, as will roofs around the district where we're experiencing leaking and things like that, as well as the new HVAC system within the Comics and window replacement as well. So that bond will also be brought to the community on May 19th along with the budget. So there'll be 2 items to be voted on at the May 19th meeting. So I did want to bring you the information. We have another board meeting tonight on the budget. Debbie, is it televised?
It is going to be televised.
So it's televised this evening again. So if you can't come to the meeting and you'd like more information, please tune in. We hope tonight the board will consider the adoption of the budget tonight. If they don't do it tonight, they only have until the end of the week to do it by law. So it has to be done a certain amount of days prior to the May 19th vote. So we're looking forward perhaps to the adoption this evening with the changes that have come to us through the federal stimulus package. If there's any questions, I know that your time is limited, so I'll be here at the end of the meeting if you'd like to ask anything.
Thanks very much,
Thank
Paul.
you. Thanks for the
All right,
opportunity.
all right. Very important subject. Now we will get to our theme of the day, this week, actually. This is Green Week, and Marlene Colbert is going to take over to present and handle this part of our meeting, and we're just so delighted to give time, as we know so many volunteers have, to this very important subject. So,
Mary Lee, I'd like to thank you, and I'd like to thank all the members of the summit. We had a very big meeting on February 2nd, an environmental summit, and at that time Mary Lee and I spoke and thought it would be a great idea to try to bring our information that we've all gathered here to the summit. So basically our aim today is to give you as much information as we possibly can, and obviously to take your questions. Earth Week is a wonderful week to be having this meeting, although I think Mother Nature has something to say about what we've all been doing, if the weather yesterday is any indication. I was going to start by introducing the 3 heads of our municipalities, but they've introduced themselves. Liz Feld, who is the mayor of Larchmont, and for whom I personally owe a great debt of gratitude for reconstituting our group and putting us really on the map because we've done a lot of work. Valerie O'Keefe, supervisor of the town of Mamaroneck, and Kathy Sabo, the village of Mamaroneck's mayor. I don't want to say anything today because I think there is so much to put before you. Mary Lee has given us very, very strict orders to keep this as short as possible, and we've got a lot to cover. So I would like to take this opportunity simply to turn the meeting over to Carol Casaza Herman, who is the chair of the Environmental Committee and really has done yeoman work for the village of Larchmont, and I think for the whole community. Carol.
Well, thanks so much, Marlene, and good morning. I am just delighted to be here. Thanks for the opportunity. Would you like me to stand for this?
Yes.
Okay.
Unaccustomed as she is to public speaking.
Yeah. And happy Green Week. In Larchmont, every week is Green Week with the Committee on the Environment. What we did want to talk about today is really go over what the Larchmont Committee on the Environment has done over the past year and a half. Think about how it relates to your member organizations and the constituencies you serve, and then perhaps think about what could we do together going forward that might make sense to raise environmental awareness in the community and really through community outreach achieve some more environmental progress for our village operations and our residents. To start, I'd love to spend a little time on some history. As Marlene mentioned, Liz Feld reconstituted the Environmental Committee at the end of 2007. Just after that time, Larchmont Board of Trustees decided to join ICLEI. And for those of you who don't know what ICLEI is, it is a worldwide organization for local communities that have committed to environmental progress and sustainability. The Larchmont Environmental Committee is a group of 10 folks. Besides myself, you've met Jen Jensen here, one of our other members, and I'll just take a moment because you might recognize some of these names to mention some of the other folks. Lynn Crowley, Suzanne Frank, Sally Macca, Bruce McFarland, Millie McGraw, Ellen Martin, Holly Moscow, Julia Steinmetz, and Lori Stevenson. And that committee, since the very end of 2007, has been active in the areas of CO2 emissions and energy reduction, recycling, pesticides minimization, vehicle idling, composting, deconstruction, and sustainable transportation planning. We had a very, very active 2008 and actually moved forward on quite a number of projects. As Marlene mentioned, in February 2nd of 2009, just a few months ago, we decided to have a summit in Larchmont, invited a list of community leaders. We got approximately 100 folks to attend our meeting and basically went through what we achieved, why we were working on those objectives, and also solicited from those leaders how might we better work with the community and individuals to advance environmental objectives. It was a very, very successful event, and since then the Committee on the Environment has taken forward not only projects that it had started, but projects that have been suggested by members of the community. I should just stop here. There are some outlines of my remarks around. There are not enough for the whole room, so if folks were fortunate enough to get a copy, share them with your neighbors. What we would probably do is post these on our website for folks to take a look at if they're interested.
And the presentation for February 2nd isn't here.
And as Marlene reminds me, our presentation from the Larchmont Summit is on our website. Just to spend a few moments on exactly what we did. It gives you a flavor of the areas that we've felt were important to make Larchmont a more sustainable village. In the areas of energy efficiency and CO2 reduction, we've done a number of energy conservation projects, but even before you get to those, you might ask, why spend our time on that? And certainly it's because it's the right thing to contribute to the national effort to reduce climate change effects. It's the right thing to do to reduce our energy usage. But also there's a cost factor here. Price of energy has particularly oil has gone up and down, but it is something that is quite variable and is certainly going to become a more restricted commodity. So an energy efficient village is a well-managed village, and we have spent an awful lot of time understanding what our energy uses are in the village, with the goal of managing it better and ultimately reducing our carbon footprint. As part of that project, you may have seen the village board had agreed to a public goal to reduce CO2. Our reduction goal is coincident with the Westchester goal, which is a 20% reduction in CO2 by 2015 from a 2005 baseline. We've implemented some projects to reach that goal. We do have a long way to go, but thank goodness we have a few years to make it. Future activities that we want to consider in that area are additional conservation measures, replacement of non-emergency vehicles with hybrid, planting more trees, increasing recycling rates. And that brings us to our other major area of work, recycling. There we've worked with the Sanitation Commission to put more recycling containers in commercial districts in Larchmont. We've been victims of our own success. Sometimes they're overflowing, so that leads us to think about what's the right balance between number of containers and how frequently they're picked up. Very recently we sent, Mayor Feld sent a letter to the sports commissions and the Mamaroneck High School asking that kids bring reusable water bottles. Again, small projects that in a community like this are extraordinarily impactful in making us a more sustainable village. Of particular interest, perhaps, to the constituencies that you serve are the issue of environmental health. Many factors associated with good health are related to what's around you in the environment. So we have concentrated on the areas of pesticides reduction, vehicle idling, and transportation planning. Pesticides minimization, hopefully the reduction of things that are potentially harmful and toxic. The village is considering a no pesticides policy. At the moment, we do have a no pesticides policy in parks and playing fields. Anti-idling, the village last year passed a anti-idling law, and for those of you who don't know, vehicle exhaust between as many as 40 air pollutants, 15 of which are carcinogenic. Some of the main areas of idling are schools, a lot of young lungs at work in our schools, and also train stations. So there have been some signage posted, and we've gone out with some educational materials. Lastly, with regard to transportation, wouldn't it be great if all of our communities were made more walkable and bikeable? But for that, it's not a question of telling people to do that. We need to take a look at our transportation infrastructure to make that more feasible for folks. The last thing I just want to quickly touch on before turning it over just for a minute to Jennifer is deconstruction. For those of you who don't know what deconstruction is, with all of the refurbishment and rebuilding we do in this community, wouldn't it be nice if some of that material didn't go into a landfill, but actually was reused and recycled. So deconstruction is the process by which building materials are then donated to organizations that can find a way to reuse them. So just as an example, I did not know anything about this at all. I had some work done in my home. I was left with some 1925 tubs and medicine chests. Everybody knows what those are, right? Sitting in the back of my garage. Well, through these deconstruction organizations, all I needed to do was call up, they pick them up, you get a charitable deduction, and they're being refurbished for use somewhere else. Can do the same thing with building materials, bathroom tiles, all sorts of things that we're loath to throw out, they sit around, we can find someone and put them to good use. I'd like to turn it over to Jennifer for just a brief minute. There is so much interesting work going on with composting and also recycling. I thought it'd be wonderful if Jennifer could tell you about it. Jennifer is also not only a member of our committee, she's also a master gardener.
Thank you, Carol. Very quickly, I'm not sure that you're aware of this or not, but 2/3 of all the materials that are going into our landfills are organic materials. This is according to the EPA. You can find that information on the website. These are organic materials that can otherwise be recycled or composted and kept in our own backyards or recycled through our materials recovery centers like the ones that we have here in Westchester County. Now this number, this 2/3 number, does not include glass and it does not include metals. It only includes the organic wastes such as paper, yard wastes, and kitchen wastes. So this is a pretty alarming number. 2/3 is a pretty alarming number. So the committee, Larchmont Committee on the Environment's response to this was to build a master composter and recycler program for Westchester County. This is a program that is relevant here in Larchmont, but also has overreaching abilities throughout Westchester County. It's a train-the-trainer program that will bring, this year will bring 24 participants to Sheldrake Environmental Center. We'll teach them issues on laws related to recycling here in Westchester County, on composting, on vermicomposting, which is worm composting in the kitchen. It's what people who live in apartments can do if they don't have room for a compost pile, as well as recycling and sound recycling practices and deconstruction. So we'll have 24 people this year at Sheldrake Environmental Center. At the end of the program, they'll be going back into their communities and volunteering 35 hours a person. Altogether, we'll have about 800 volunteer man hours going towards composting, recycling, deconstruction in Westchester.
Fabulous, thank you. So as you can see, the committee has been very, very busy over the past year. There's no lack of projects to finish up, and there's certainly no lack of projects to start up. There's some day goes by, why not get an email with some other really good suggestions of something else we should do or put on our radar screen. What we have done and what we will continue to do is look across municipalities to find areas in which we can all work together. There are folks working in each of the municipalities, both on the boards obviously, but also in the community to advance environmental projects. So where it's appropriate to work together, we're certainly looking to do that, and also partner with local not-for-profits. Jennifer just told you of a wonderful program we put together very quickly, as a matter of fact, with Sheldrake Environmental Center. But certainly there may be opportunities to work with any of your organizations on a specific project that might be of interest to your constituencies. So once again, thank you for this time today, and I want to turn it over to Valerie O'Keefe.
Thank you very much. I can't add better sense to the preposition. I got a message where I come and say something about what the town of Mamaroneck is doing in environmental affairs, and I immediately said to myself, well, we have in the town of Mamaroneck not only an expert about the town of Mamaroneck, but also Westchester County, New York State, the Long Island Sound, the East Coast, estuaries, probably the United States. So I immediately picked up the phone and asked my colleague and my friend Nancy Seligson if she would speak on my behalf. So Nancy.
Thank you, Mallory. A little overestimated, but thank you. I appreciate it. The town of Mamaroneck, I think you all know, has had a long and very illustrious reputation for being forward-thinking in the environment. We've done a lot of things. In fact, in the state of New York, the town of Mamaroneck is actually known for its work in the environment. And when we, as town board members, go to meetings throughout the state or state-wide meetings, people come up to us and say, "Oh, the town of Mamaroneck, I know you've done some great stuff in the environment." And most of you might know that because of the rezoning that was done of the golf courses, and that was changed to recreational zoning. So those golf courses that are in the town of Mamaroneck cannot be developed as residential developments. They must remain recreational zoning. And that is very, very important to protect flooding, biodiversity, believe it or not, and maybe even golfers. But that wasn't the intent. But that is probably the most important and the largest effort that the town has made. And that falls into the category of land use regulation. Land use is one of the most important tools in protecting the environment. And we all know that local municipalities control land use in the state of New York. We don't have regional planning, I'm sorry, we do have planning. But unfortunately, I'd like to see it have a lot more teeth. I'd love to see regional planning actually have be forced implementation and impact on the local communities. But we control land use, so that means that as much as we know about and learn about important sustainability practices, the state, the county can talk to us as much as we want, but unless we implement it here in the local municipalities, it's not going to happen. So in the town of Mamaroneck, we have very strict laws on what can happen development-wise in freshwater wetlands, in tidal wetlands, and in buffer areas. We also have a very strong soil and erosion control law, which controls runoff that comes from activities during construction. And those are really important laws to have, because as much as the community says, oh, we take care of it, don't worry, you need to have that on the books so that people can call up, so that you can hold it in a developer's space, so that you can tell the builder, you've got to do this, it's the law. We also have a conservation department in the town of Mamaroneck, and we fund a conservation coordinator who is Elizabeth Paul. Some of you might know her. She's got a myriad of duties in the town of Mamaroneck, but she is really our point person on conservation. And that's a real luxury that we have in the town, but it's an imperative luxury to have someone like that. In 19, oh my God, wrong decade.
Imperative luxury, right?
2000.
That's a new word.
That's how I see it. In 2007, the town joined ICLEI, which Carol already mentioned, Communities for Sustainability. That was a really important move because it helped us really decide that we're going to look at our carbon footprint and we're going to try and reduce it. The initial target that we set for reducing our carbon footprint is very, very modest, and that's 5% by the year 2012. And that was because the town board felt that we really wanted to be able to accomplish it first, to see how difficult it was going to be to reduce that carbon footprint. But now I think that once we get better at monitoring the changes we've made and the improvements we've made, we'll be able to improve that target. In 2007, the town did another very funky, cool first-time thing, and that was we converted a garbage truck to run unused vegetable oil. And although the county has vehicles that had run on vegetable oil, before, no one had ever done it with a garbage truck. Although I did see a program the other day that said in Alaska that they had done that, which surprises me because because you need to heat the oil. So the beauty of this is that used vegetable oil is something that's garbage to all the people who end up with it, such as every diner, every Chinese restaurant, every restaurant you can think of. And they need to pay to get rid of it. So the town said, we'll pick it up for you for free. And we're gonna take it back to our town yard. We have a brilliant guy, Mike Pinto, who's our lead mechanic right now, and he said, I can do this. You heat up the oil, you filter it through a few cheesecloths, and then you stick it in the garbage truck. And once it's heated up, it runs on used vegetable oil. This smells different than diesel. It might smell like Chinese food, it might smell like grilled cheese. It depends on where it comes from, French fries. But it's better than diesel, and it's better than diesel because number one, it's a heck of a lot cheaper than diesel fuel, and that's the beauty of it from a town board perspective, number one. But number two, it eliminates almost all of the greenhouse gases that come out of the exhaust. There's no particulate matter there. You are running a clean truck. Of course, we painted ours green, it looks beautiful, it has little running vegetables on the side of it, and we're very proud of that. We are going to bring another garbage truck online in 3 weeks, and that's going to save us a total of 5,500 gallons of diesel fuel a year and an approximate annual dollar savings of $9,000 a year. In January 2008, the town began heating its town center with biofuel, 20% biofuel, not just straight diesel. We were a little nervous about that. You know, how is it going to run in our buildings? It's turned out that there has been absolutely no problem whatsoever, no changeover issues at all. And it's so successful that we now heat all of our oil heat buildings on biodiesel. That reduces the amount of greenhouse gases as well. In 2008, we passed a no idling legislation, which I was really proud of, I have to say, because it was one of the first municipalities to pass the no idling legislation. And I still don't get it. No matter how much gas costs, you're wasting gas when you're idling your car. When you're idling your SUV, you're not only wasting more gas, but you're really hurting everyone's lungs because cars produce more particulate matter and more greenhouse gases when they're idling than when they're actually running at 50 miles per hour. So turn off the car. It's just so much smarter. It's not like it's frozen tundra outside anymore, and it's not like we're boiling in heat, so you can actually turn that car off. We need to do a better job, all of us, Larchmont Mamaroneck, the town, in educating people about this, and putting up signs, no idling, it's the law, it's hurting people's lungs, and handing out the brochures and letting people know. It is a little dangerous, although I do it quite often, to go up to the person who's idling. I don't necessarily recommend it if you're a big, strong guy. And I say, excuse me, would you mind turning off your car? I get a whole variety of responses. Sure, no problem.
No variety.
Who the hell are you? Mind your own business. Why? But you know what? If I can convince or educate one person that this is a smart thing to do for the environment and for their pocketbook, I feel a little better about it. So far, I haven't gotten punched in the face, so I'm okay. A couple of other things we've done is that we are going to be changing cars in our fleet in the town to smaller, compact, 4-cylinder cars whenever we can. I mean, some jobs require larger cars, but for field inspections and certain jobs, we can change over to that. We already do have one hybrid vehicle. Another thing I'm excited about is that police cars are V8 engines. Those are intense engines. They use more fuel, they produce more greenhouse gases, but guess what? The state now has a contract where the police can use V6 engines. And that is still a big car for them. They can have all their bells and whistles on it, but it runs a little cleaner and it runs a little more efficiently. So we're going to be moving to V6 engines. I'm happy about that. Finally, on the vehicle side, our larger SUVs that are used by the fire department and ambulance district are multi-fuel capable, which means that if we move to gasoline that has higher levels of ethanol in it, or a different kind of gasoline, that we'll be able to use that. All the light bulbs in the town building have been replaced with the T8 CFC light bulbs. Each fixture is supposed to save $26 a year, leading to a 40% savings in lighting costs, not to mention the energy costs. In November 2007, we changed all the street lights to high-pressure sodium vapor from incandescent bulbs. Those are controlled by photocells, so they go on and off. We're looking to try and change them to LED lights, but there's some discussion about that, and I don't know if we're going to be able to. But we're working on making the traffic lights, as in the green, yellow, and red, all LED. We're also looking at changing the emergency vehicle lights to LED, which would be really cool, because right now, emergency vehicles have to be on and idling, and they're usually big vehicles, as in fire trucks and police cars, in order to have the lights running. When you're at an emergency scene, you have to keep the lights running, obviously. But if we can change the lights to LED on those emergency vehicles, we can turn off the engine and still have the lights running.
Are LED different than halogens or?
Yeah. So that would be interesting. And, you know, some little things, we're only using recycled paper towels. We buy 2% of our energy from wind power. And we're making a lot of little small changes, which I want to encourage everyone to think that they can do that even in their own homes and their own lives. Because cumulatively, it's going to make the big difference we need in this country and in this world. There's no great silver bullet here to get us out of greenhouse gases and carbon footprint. I just want you to know that we still have a long way to go. I'd like to see us monitoring every change we make so much better. I'd like to see us looking more into solar energy, buying more wind power, reducing vehicle miles traveled, better educating the public, revising our building codes to put in, to enforce more green energy appliances. And there's so much more, but it's a start, and you should feel good that your governments are making a start. If you have recommendations, let us know. And I want to encourage all of you to contact me if you're interested to have this information or ask me any questions. I'm Nancy18b@AOL.com, and Iris Freed's neighbor. Oh, and excellent. Next is the Village of Mamaroneck Mayor, Kathy Sabo.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Nancy. You did a great job. Nancy and Carol are my heroes. To keep with the theme of today, I'm green with envy over everything. I'm going to start with a couple of facts, and then we'll talk a little bit about what's going on in the Village of Mamaroneck from the environmental front. Fact, I've been mayor for 16 months. Okay, so you got to keep that in mind. The second fact is that we're in the middle of our budget cycle, like the school district. We have to have our budget done, not this week, although we're shooting for this week because we have a board meeting Monday night, so we're trying to get our budget done by Monday. And I've been working on the budget with the new village manager, who's been with us now for only 4 weeks, pretty much nonstop. So unlike a nice PowerPoint presentation or a nicely typed remarks, I did this sitting in bed watching Dancing with the Stars next night. So you'll have to forgive me. And I don't profess to have a lot of facts in this area. And I think you'll, just by some of the things that I'm going to say, you'll see the stark contrast between the accomplishments and of the village of Larchmont and the town of Mamaroneck, people who have been working on these initiatives for a long time, and the village of Mamaroneck, who has had a different administration with a different opinion about environmental issues. And I'd like to, as we have members of the Larchmont Committee for the Environment, we also have Anne-Marie Chironi with us, who was on the Mamaroneck Committee of the Environment for many years, struggled with trying to get the administration's attention. She fought the good fight, and Anne Marie, if there's anything I say that's not exactly true, don't tell anybody, tell me afterwards. Because I didn't have time to check a lot of facts, because like I said, I was doing this at 9:30 last night. Let's dial back. I'm going to do a little history like Carol did in the village of Mamaroneck. To give you a sense, if you don't understand history, you don't understand kind of where we are. So I'm going to go back to 1970s and the first Earth Day and everybody getting all excited about the environment. And the village of Mamaroneck was no different. Okay, there were lots of issues going on with threatened zoning on some of our beach clubs. So, like the town of Mamaroneck, we created marine recreation zones and we rezoned our beach clubs. And we've been in a 20-plus year fight with one of the owners of the beach club, which we're still in, where he still wants to build housing on the beach club. And so we created two zones: marine recreation and marine commercial zoning for all our boat yards, so that we wouldn't have waterfront development. That wasn't really seen as an environmental act at the time. Hindsight, you can see it was an environmental act. Having the beach clubs open space helps us with all sorts of issues. Unfortunately, our beach clubs are on the water. The open space is at the bottom of the watershed, which I'll get into in a little bit. It's not really helping us with water retention, water detention, but it's open space nonetheless. It's trees, it's green, helps us breathe, things like that. We also started with recycling in the 70s, and the Village of Mamaroneck created a citizens committee called the Recycling Committee, and I think in 1979. That date might not be exact. It's kind of out of my memory bank, so I'm not sure if I exactly got it right. And basically then, until 2002, environmentalism in the Village of Mamaroneck was equated with recycling. That was all that was done. That was all anybody thought about. That's all anybody did. We had some very, very tough people trying to get the village to consider doing anything else. But basically, the village let them do the recycling calendar that was published once a year to tell everybody when the recycling was going to be picked up, recycling rules, and that's basically what the village allowed them to do. Now we're going to fast forward to 2002. I was on the board previous to my stint as mayor. I was a trustee from 2000 to 2002. Many of the people not in the Village of Mamaroneck know me around the county of Westchester for my environmental work. I was on the board of Sheldrake. I was a volunteer at Sheldrake. I come to the village. We're dealing with all sorts of issues. First and foremost in that time was the fact that our beach was closed due to high bacteria counts. Some of you who lived here a long time may remember that. Back in the 1990s, the county basically told the village that the bacteria counts in the harbor were too high, and that unless you did something, we would be closing the beach for swimming. So the village did some research and found a company in South Portland, Scarborough, Maine, called the Gunderboom Company, and they make a biofilter, and we purchased a biofilter. In 2000, there was an oil spill from one of the local boat yards, and it damaged the biofilter, and it had to be pulled up. So for 2 years, there was no biofilter in place because we were suing the boat yard to pay for the damage, and we had to wait to buy. They're not cheap. They're $200,000 plus. So we sued and won and got a new biofilter, but for 2 years the beach was closed. So for those of you who remember what was going on then, I was sitting on the board. We were getting all sorts of slings and arrows thrown at us. The experts were telling us that the cause of the pollution at the beach was non-point source pollution, which of course, being in the environmental field, I kind of understood. But the local advocates were telling us and making a big noise that it was leaking sewage. Land use, I agree with Nancy, land use is one of the biggest environmental issues that a local government can deal with. Non-point source pollution coming from the land, going into the water. I start making noise about taking our recycling committee, disbanding it, and creating a committee for the environment. The then mayor fought me tooth and nail. He wanted a mayor's committee that he could set himself for water quality, and he wanted to focus on water quality. We compromised, and on April 22nd, 2002, Earth Day, or thereabouts, the village created the Committee for the Environment. Anne Marie was one of the first members on the committee. I was so happy. The intent of that committee was to deal with broad environmental issues. At the same time, the mayor created, without board of trustee vote, his own water quality committee, and he basically ignored the committee for the environment for the next 6 years. Accurate? They focused on environment. The water quality committee focused on water quality. In December 2002, the board composition changed and I went off to run an environmental center for 4 years in Yonkers and became even more involved in the environment and got more involved in issues of sustainability and all sorts of things that everybody's interested in now. The Committee for the Environment focused on recycling, focused on educating people, fought the administration for recycling bins in Harbor Island, fought the administration for recycling bins on Mamaroneck Avenue, fought the administration to have recycling done in Village Hall. But they did have some success. The Village of Mamaroneck hosted the very first e-waste day in the Village of Mamaroneck, in the whole county of Westchester. And we've now had 3 or 4 of them. They did a lot of research on bringing a farmer's market to the village, and I'm proud to say that the farmer's market, as I think you all know, is now here. They did what they could on their own without the support of the government. And unfortunately, a lot of volunteers dropped by the wayside. People very interested in the environment dropped by the wayside. In the meantime, the administration and the mayor's committee focused on the sewage system. They focused on water quality. They focused on Long Island Sound and the consent order. All very important issues, but not the only issues. They talked about sewage overflows, and they brought consultants in, and they actually paid a consultant to prove that the biofilter works and the water inside the biofilter was cleaner than the water outside the biofilter. But of course we knew that for 10 or 15 years because when the biofilter was in place, swimming was allowed. When it wasn't in place, swimming wasn't allowed. So, whatever. We spent over $600,000 lining the sewers, slip lining the sewers. We joined with the consent agreement with Westchester County to reduce nitrogen out into the sound. We're under legal orders to reduce nitrogen. The county was pressuring us to do things. Like I said, we spent over $600,000. We recently authorized over $200,000 to buy a new biofilter. The old one's worn out. The Department of Health has told us, regardless of all the money you spent on your sewers, you still need the biofilter. It didn't solve your problem of bacteria at the beach because, as the experts told us 10 years ago, it was not point source pollution in the first place. But we did have an aging sewer infrastructure. It was very important for us to address it. And we are still slip lining sewers, and we are still working on bringing the sewer pipes up to date. But at least we don't have wood pipes, as I see we did. Some people do it in the paper yesterday. During the period of time, we also purchased some wind energy. I think probably the Power Authority made the program available, so some percentage of our energy, like the town, is coming from wind power. I think it's safe to say, as a conclusion of this, is that if somebody didn't put something in front of us, we didn't do it. We basically didn't have a lot of initiative. But if somebody showed us something and said it's good for you to do this, we probably did it. So now we're going to fast forward to December 2007, and the composition of the board changes again. I disbanded the mayor's committee on water quality and brought the members into the committee for the environment and told the committee for the environment that they had broad powers to deal with environmental issues. We articulated, as a government, an environmental vision, a very lofty environmental vision. We know the town of Mamaroneck has that reputation out there as being environmentally forward and doing a lot. And we said, you know what? We are environmentally challenged in the village of Mamaroneck. We are 3.5 square miles that sits right on Long Island Sound, one of the most environmentally important bodies of water on the planet. We are at the bottom of 32 square mile watershed. 32 square miles of water drain through 3.5 square miles of water before they get to Long Island, before it gets to Long Island Sound. We had just come through a major flood. The board, my board, articulated that we wanted to be known for the most forward-thinking environmental actions in the area, in the world, whatever. But we were going to start somewhere. But we set a lofty goal. And I got that out there. I put it in the Voice of the Village. We mentioned it to the village manager, it got mentioned to some of the department heads, and I planted some seeds. And some of them actually took root, and I'll talk about it in a minute. Immediately, right after I became mayor, he started double-sided copying board packages to say, I mean, simple things that weren't being done. I'm not kidding. You laugh, but this is where we started. I had the village manager issue an executive order for all village vehicles, no idling. Village vehicles were idling, police officers. The only exception to that is if they need to keep running for emergency purposes, or our K-9 officer in the hot weather needs to keep the car on for the dog, okay? We started almost immediately to recruit a new village manager, and I had to write a profile of the village and what we were looking for a village manager, and one of the bullet points I put is we wanted to make the village of Mamaroneck a sustainable community that was doing great things in the environment, and we wanted a village manager who was going to join with us in that effort. And I'm happy to report that we have a new village manager. He's been with us for 4 weeks, and he is not only embracing our efforts, but he wants to lead our efforts. And more about that later. I understand the impact of land use on the environment. So since I've been mayor, we've changed our FAR law to reduce the bulk of buildings, both commercial and residential, and we've begun a review of our codes. Because if you don't bring your codes up to date, and many of our codes haven't been brought up to date since 1968 or 1979, what we found during the course of our review is not only have we not brought up our environmental codes up to snuff, except for some flood codes that FEMA made us bring up after the flood or they wouldn't give us any money, we do not have a law on the books that protect our waterways. We, according to the county planning department, are the only municipality in the entire county of Westchester that do not have this law on the books. Here we are at the bottom of the watershed, 3 rivers coming through that flood over, and we don't have any laws preventing people from throwing things in the river. Or putting things next to the river, or any of those things. So we're working on that. We hadn't changed our, a few more minutes for questions. We hadn't changed our impervious surface laws as other people did. Everybody went over, so now they're cutting me short. Okay. Mandatory recycling came in January of '08. Thereabouts, I had been mayor a month. We decided that we were going to recycle in Village Hall. Ugh, would have been a novel idea. We bought recycling bins for Village Hall. Yeah, I know, really. This is where we are. Okay, so we recycled in Village Hall. I had made a comment, and plus our Committee for the Environment was trying to work with, we own lots of buildings. It's not just the Regatta, it's not just Mount Pleasant, all over. We have 5 firehouses, soon to be 4 firehouses. We have 5 firehouses. Our baby chief at the time, Chris Simonowski, decided he was going to work on recycling, and he really pushed recycling in our fire department. I'm now happy to say there are recycling bins, and our fire department has been educated on recycling. There's going to be more recycling bins on Mamaroneck Avenue, more recycling bins in Harbor Island Park. Our new village manager is pushing this. The only holdout is our police department. So we're working still on our police department. We're still not recycling our police department. We passed a leaf blower seasonal ban. We've purchased a veggie truck. We're unveiling it on Saturday at the Green Week. We've created a climate for a lot more volunteers, and we have a lot more citizen activism. We've signed up with the Power Authority to convert our street lights to LED. We've joined ICLES. We joined in 2008. We're a little bit behind, but we're still going. We're in the process of beginning the calculation of our carbon footprint, which will lead us to our environmental action plan. We're going to do the carbon footprint calculation. We're going to figure out what we're going to do. Then we're going to have a plan of action. We're going to catch up. You can see we have a lot of catching up to do. The previous mayor commissioned a committee to do a master plan update for the entire village. In my opinion, it's not that environmentally friendly. It's not forward thinking at all. We've not adopted the plan. We didn't think it went far enough. We're going to revisit everything, especially because of flooding. We're going to revisit everything, and we're going to redo the master plan. April 25th, I invite you all to join us at 9:30 in the morning in Columbus Park. We're planting a tree, and I call it a double-duty working tree. Well, every tree is a working tree, as we know. We are planting a tree on the banks of the river, and we selected the tree because not only is it going to help us breathe, but it's also going to help with bank stabilization, and it was picked, the type of tree was picked just because it can be near a river and can help stabilize the banks of the river. We're going to issue our first annual environmental award, and honoring people in the village of Mamaroneck who do something for the environment. And the first, this is where my little seeds got planted, the first recipients were our 3 fire chiefs.
Our former chief, he just was replaced 2 weeks ago. Kevin Dellner heard what I said and had some money to retrofit his firehouse, and he retrofitted it with better energy efficient lighting, put in, when the trucks pull out, you'll see if the trucks go on a call, all the lights stay on in the firehouse, not in his firehouse. There's all sensors, everything goes off. Our second assistant chief, who's now our fire chief, Dean DeLitta, took it to heart, was frustrated with dealing with our DPW and created a paperless work order system for the entire village. And our baby chief, who is now our second assistant chief, as I said, took on recycling. So the three of them will be getting the first annual environmental award. They were all recommended to the Board of Trustees by our Committee for the Environment. Following the ceremony at 9:30, we are going to clean up our rivers. We have just commissioned a consultant to walk the entire length of our waterways to see where our problems are. We're going to start with a citizen cleanup, resident cleanup. You're all invited to join us. And we're doing some neighborhood cleanups. The environmental award ceremony is going to be at 11 o'clock at the Farmers Market at St. Thomas Church. Thank you very much.
Well, Marlene, are you,
Well, I tell you something, I heard everything that we have been doing in the municipalities, but the aim really is to try to get people who are here today, who deal with communities that really need help with those types of things, where it can save money, where it can save energy, all of those things. And that question for you is, how can we, the municipalities, help you, the nonprofit groups that are here today, improve lives for the citizens of the three municipalities? And I think the people you've heard speak today would be happy to answer questions or hear your views.
Marlene, I have right away.
Okay.
I'm glad we're drinking out of this type of cup. We all belong to organizations. What about the plastic cups, that just enormous volumes of them at almost every event I can think of, that is not, this type of event, which is, I'm so glad.
You mean if we go and we have styrofoam and things like that?
What do we do about this?
Well,
What is the best recommendation?
There are, of course, companies now that make biodegradable, things that will degrade. The problem right now, and I believe this is a societal problem, is they're very expensive. If you go out into the market and you try to find things for your village or your organization, and you're looking to save money, they right now cost more. I think that in the next few years, there will be a push out there for companies and competing companies to get into this market, and then things will come down. Obviously, if you're able to, I have a bunch of brochures at the village of Larchmont. There was a big meeting in the county, has a lot of information, and there are organizations out there that will be glad to come and turn your whole community activity or your government into an organization that uses only environmentally sound products. But you have to be willing, I think, at this point, to pay a little more for them. For example, cleaning products. If you go into, and I can only speak for Foley Hardware, if you go in there, there's an entire section in Foley's that deals only in green products. So if you're concerned about the effect on your family, you can go in there, and I'm sure there are other hardware stores as well, particularly the True Values that are around here, and buy green products for your home. So there are ways if you want to do it. Some things are difficult. I think for things like what Jen was talking about, composting and things, there are ways to reduce garbage. We, for example, pay in our communities for the garbage that we don't recycle. So anything that's recyclable here, for example, gets picked up and doesn't cost us anything. For every ton that we have to pick up that's not recyclable, we pay a lot of money. So obviously what you want to do is reduce the waste stream. There are ways to do that. You can either start to charge households per bag of garbage. That's been proposed.
Not in an election year.
Or you can try to reduce it on your own. Obviously, backyard composting is one of the best ways to do that right off the bat. Recycle everything. The MRF, which is the Westchester facility, is in the process of upgrading itself so that we will, within hopefully the next year, you will, and Judy Myers, our county legislator, is here. She might have some more information about that. It will be upgraded to take number 1 to number 7, Judy, or 9, I'm not sure. All plastics. So that's been a long time in the coming. Our county executive told us recently, I have to say off the record, that he recycles all of his plastics now. So I did learn that little fact. So that is going to happen. And Judy, do you think that's in the next year or not?
I think so. They are in the process of retooling. Part of the impetus comes from actually having an aftermarket for these
Which was
plastics.
just collapsed.
Right, yeah, which is collapsing, unfortunately, but it will come back.
Right.
The strongest market had been for the triangular, the 1s and 2s, which is why they are currently the only ones that the MRF is tooled to disperse. It does this whole, I don't know if any of you have taken school trips there, but they're really awesome to go to. It's a pretty amazing place where air comes up under a conveyor belt and actually separates out by weight what all the different plastics are. So they're retooling that now. So that is coming. The other thing I was going to mention that actually goes along with all of this is we're on the cusp, I hope, of passing some legislation in the county that would eliminate the sale of phosphated fertilizers, fertilizers containing phosphorus, for use on healthy lawns, basically. You will still be able to purchase it, but there are lots of restrictions. It can only be used for small plants, for shrubs, to start a lawn. And the other restriction in this legislation is that you can't put down any fertilizer that has nitrogen in it within 20 feet of a water body. That is of particular importance to us here on the Sound because it can migrate. It migrates 20 feet, and we're spending, you know, $500,000 to $250 million, I mean, to get the nitrogen out of the water. So it seems a little foolish for us to all put some back in. So this is legislation that has been very slow in working its way through committees, but we're very, very hopeful that we'll have enough support to pass this out.
And I just wanted to say the one thing that Ann just reminded me, the group that's sort of not here today in a sense, except represented by the superintendent and is that the schools. In all of the schools, and I won't speak for the schools, but I know that certainly in the village of Larchmont, and I think throughout the school district, there is an awakening to this environmental change.